Hello and welcome to Sky Sports F1 IndyCar. Time now to digest the IndyCar opener from St. Pete as I sit down with the star of the moment, Team Penske's Scott McLaughlin. First and foremost, Scott, talk me through those victory celebrations, a tumble in victory lane and a burnt backside.
Yeah, it wasn't exactly how I planned it. You know, you always sort of think how the first one's going to go and how pumped you're going to be, but I threw it all out the window. I think my heart rate on my whoop calculator I've got on my wrist here, it peaked in victory lane. So of the whole race, and it was a pretty pressure cooker race there. So yeah, it wasn't my finest moment, but it's something to remember it by, something for the fans to remember me by. And then I had a few Australian, New Zealand fans in the crowd asking me to do a shoey like Danny Rick, and yeah, I don't want to take his thunder, but you know, it's part of the tradition now, and he's really put it on the world stage.
Yeah, there was a can brought in, and you did the whole can, didn't you? So did it taste good?
Oh, I mean, it was victory, right? So I think it doesn't matter what it tastes like, but I think yeah, it's not something I do on every occasion, that's for sure.
Yeah, before we talk about the detail, let's just talk about the sentiment. I mean, you've not seen your parents since January 2020, I think I'm right in saying. But yep. The magical moment for me was seeing you sat down in front of the car on your phone talking to them. I mean, that is a moment you must have dreamt about. But we all know we're confident, but until you've done it, you never quite know if that moment's going to realise. I mean, just talk us through how powerful that moment was and just letting the emotions sink in and sharing it with your parents.
Yeah, I think I was just so exhausted because it was just such a big relief. It was such a, yeah, you know, to be able to just say, oh, I'm an IndyCar race winner now. It was as much as the effort that I've put in over the last year and a half to get there with, you know, coming across here, moving to the other side of the world during the middle of a pandemic when things were just crazy. You know, it's been tough on myself and my wife. And my wife's from America, and it's even been tough for her. But yeah, not having mum and dad there was a bit sour. But at the same time, you know, being able to FaceTime them, that's the wonders of technology these days, and being able to do all that sort of stuff. And yeah, I guess I just sat down. It was just all instinct. I just sat down next to the car and said, how cool is this? And then obviously all the cameras were there. I'm like, this is a lot more cameras than a supercar race. And they were laughing, and it was, yeah, it was pretty special. But yes, super excited for them to come in May. Their first race is going to be the Indianapolis 500. And the first time that ever they'll see me in an IndyCar will be when I'm tearing into turn one for qualifying at the Indy 500. So good luck with that.
Yeah, what a nerve-wracking experience. But what time was it for them? About 1 in the morning, is it?
No, like 6 a.m. It's not too bad in New Zealand. Yeah.
Okay, so they weren't too tired. Right, let's get into the weekend now. You were fast all weekend, and I remember looking at the practice times and talking to my producer at Sky and saying, you know, it's only practice, but just look at that time. I think it was the fastest time around St. Pete for an IndyCar, and that must have given you lots of hope. Did it add any pressure going into qualifying as well?
No, not so much. If anything, it just made me. I felt the car, like I knew that the time was there, and yeah, everyone else sort of went a little bit quicker in qualifying, but I had a really good run in that practice and I think that was a pretty good lap for that time of the day, that track. And I knew we had a pretty solid car. And the greatest thing about that whole weekend was the way we rolled out of the truck. Yeah. You know, I ran basically the same car the whole way through. So I really just worked on myself just to make myself better, and gave me confidence when we got to that qualifying lap to really, you know, hit the nail on the head. But yeah, that practice 2 time put some confidence in me that we had a race car, that I had something that we could put, you know, in the Fast 6 at least. It was about me doing the job, and you know, I was really, really proud of that one. It was a big few laps, that's for sure.
Yeah, because after the Fast 12 going into the shootout, Will Power, your teammate, was quick. Colton Herter was quick, but you got it done, and it like all the great athletes, you made it look easy. You know, just look cool, calm, and collected in that final shootout process. Like you just knew what you were doing, and that was really impressive to see from the outside.
Yeah, I think I'm very lucky with having Will's data as well, and we were basically to and fro in the whole qualifying, and I didn't quite nail my laps in Q1, Q2, but I knew where I could improve it. And then the guy said to me, look, what do you want to do? Do you want to go out and just do 2 laps on red tires, or do you want to go one lap on 2 separate tires? And I decided the one lap was for me. It brought me back to sort of my roots of supercars, where it was just 1 lap, make it happen. And I was able that first set to feel the track, see where it was all going to be. And then I knew that the last lap was going to be the fastest. It was, low fuel. The track's probably at its peak. Make it happen. And I put everything together that I had learnt that I not necessarily had put together. I basically just threw it down. I knew I was either going to be 6th, or I was either going to be 1st, or in the first 2 rows. So I was like, stuff it, let's just have a crack.
Now that sort of conviction and confidence shone through, though. It looked impressive. So how did you sleep on Saturday night?
I was
first IndyCar pole position, all to do on Sunday. How'd you sleep, mate?
Look, honestly, I slept really good, but I was on a high. I was up and about for a while, and I had a lot of texts, and I was trying to look at in and out laps and stuff, trying to work it out and get my head in the game for the race. But I slept really good. At the end of the day, man, the best part about my whole journey here is I've done this at an elite level for a long time. It's just I'm in a different car, and I'm a rookie in this car. And then once I get up to speed with the car, I'm feeling, like when I get into these situations, it's like, well, I've done this before. I've controlled races from the front. So that's where I get my confidence from. So probably for me, the nerve-wracking part is getting through qualifying. And then when we qualified in pole, it was like, well, we've done 3/4 of the work now. It's all about just going back to my instincts, going back to what I know, and trying to make it all happen in the race. And that's, I sort of fell asleep, knowing that what will be the next day. And if I, do what I think I can do with the race car and hit my marks, do everything I need to do, a good result will happen.
Well, what you're saying sort of really resonates. It's powerful. I always say that the human underpins the performer. Do you do any work on that sort of personal development and understanding of self? And because for a long time, a lot of that was sort of lost, and it was all about that sort of tech and tack development. What can you do? But actually the human development's really important. And just listening to you talk, you seem to really have a good grip on that.
Yeah, no, I've got a great lady that I work with, Emma Murray, in Australia, that I've worked with for the last 3 or 4 years. Mindfulness is what we call it, and a lot of visualization, especially for qualifying laps. But using my breath when I'm racing, things get crazy. Those last 2 laps with Palou, it's all about just hitting your marks and not making mistakes, and almost pretending that he's not behind you. It sounds so simple, but it's once you get into that Zen type, way of thinking, things just flow, and it just happens, and your instincts take over instead of you thinking about, okay, well, maybe I should pass this lap marker here, or I should pass this guy. You just do it, and you're like, oh, I like that just happened, So I'm a big believer in visualizing what we need to do beforehand, and steps throughout the race. Don't think ahead. Don't think of what you can't control, like a pit stop, a bad pit stop, or whatever. All you can control is what you can control. You're in and out laps. You're hitting the marks in a pit stop, for the guys. Making sure I brake early into turn 1 to make sure I get through turn 1 in the lead, and then controlling the race from there. So, big believer, and I'm so glad to have had that experience in supercars at a very high level and hard racing, hard mental battles, because it really primed me for an elite level of racing that we have here in IndyCar.
Yeah, it's great to hear that, mate. And just picking up on the point about not looking too far ahead, you've done such a wonderful job on the sticker reds, and then that caution came out. What were you thinking at that moment?
Oh man, I was like, this is going really good. I had looked after the tire, and we're going to get to lap 35, whatever we needed to. And I was saving fuel. And then, the caution came in. I knew we were in a bit of a hole, but at the same time, the way that I come around the lap and I saw the yellow and the wall was moved back a bit, I'm like, oh, this could work out if we can just save a bit of fuel, and, the 3 stoppers might lose their advantage a little bit. And it did. And right then again, that was again going back into what I know and mindfulness and whatever, just making sure that, all right, listen to the team. They said that things will fall back into place. We just have to keep keep power behind me, and just, manage the gap to the people in front of us. As long as the lead pack and the 3 stoppers don't get too far away, we're good. And just trust your team, trust your instincts, and make it happen.
And how surprised were you to see Palou behind you? Because he kind of took everyone by storm. I don't know how aware you were in the car, but from a commentary perspective, or people watching on, got to that second stop and suddenly it was Palou.
Yeah, and I saw the blue car, and I'm like, oh, Farah, didn't he qualify like 10th or something? And he did a super job. But I looked, watching back the race, they had a really good second stop in that caution, or the first caution. I think they were able to jump a lot just with that pit box thing. So, which I'm really excited for Texas, because I've got the first pit box. So if there is a yellow, I could potentially jump a few. But look, he did a phenomenal job, and that's why he was the champ last year. He made his bad days really, really good. And like, I listened to his radio and stuff, and they had lost telemetry and everything. Like, it's a very Dixon-like drive. And if we can keep beating Palou and keep beating Dixon, I think we'll be thereabouts in the championship, because they're always there.
Yeah, now jumping ahead to Texas, you've just got back to the Carolinas. You were in Texas yesterday. It was too cold to test earlier on in the week. I mean, things that you just don't normally hear in March in Texas.
It was snowing.
Yeah, it's like frost, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I spoke to Pato O'Ward earlier on in the year, and he was in Texas, and he just said, "No, man, it's just not as warm as you think it is."
Yeah.
But you came back last night. You were quickest yesterday. You ran really strongly last year at Texas on the oval. You are carrying that crest of momentum into next weekend. What are your thoughts looking ahead at Texas, and how do you prepare for that?
Look, I think we ran through a pretty good program yesterday, and we did qualifying and race trim. So this year, it's actually not an impound race where you have to run your race car in the qualifying. So we have to really make a qualifying car similar to what we do at Indy. And I felt like we had a pretty good qual trim car and no toes, and then in the race, I felt really strong in traffic. So, but we haven't really gone too far away from where I was setup wise last year. I think we would be a little bit silly too, because I think we had a really good race car. It was just, I probably lacked a little bit of experience in areas.
Hey, you were second in your second race as a rookie. Phenomenal performance.
No, and I've really taken Tom to like the ovals. Like I think because it's just a clean sheet of paper for me. Like I don't have any bad habits from road courses or whatever. It's just like, okay, well, listen to Rick Mears, listen to everyone else, and just put it to practice what you work on. And I've really enjoyed them. The speed, the way that you've got to think about the car. There's like 10 steps throughout the corner of like what's the car doing, and we can adjust like what the tools that I have in the car, the weight jacker and stuff to help me in different areas. It's a lot more intricate than I thought it was going to be. Not that I didn't think it was going to be, but it's a lot more, full on in terms of the details than I thought. And I really love it.
Because even, the guys that have been doing it 10 years, you can hear the reliance. It's a team effort. You talk about your spotter, your strategist, all of the people at Team Penske working the tools, that confidence. There's a lot of radio chatter. How much do you rely on that support network?
Oh, it's huge. I mean, the spotter especially, and I had to really learn how to understand that. And we have our own sort of language that I can understand. Just little things like 3 back, 2 back. You just know, where before maybe last year I was looking in my mirror. Now I just trust what he says, and I don't even sort of look. I've got a bit of an awareness about me, but for the most part, it's just learning that stuff. And then your timing's a big thing in ovals, like timing your runs, because the runs are so big. Sometimes you can almost have too big a run, and then you hit the limiter in 6th gear when you pull out trying to pass people. So it's all about finding that sweet spot in terms of making sure you don't hit the dirty air, but you also don't hit the limiter and your top end. So it's I love it. It's fun, and it can really throw some curveballs in the championship. And I think if we can come out of Texas with another strong race, and then we head into Long Beach where we know we have a great street car, and have another strong race there, can really get some momentum going, and we can keep carrying this, because it's not going to be like it was at St. Pete all year for me. It's too competitive of a category for that, but I'd love it to be, but I know I've got a lot more learning to go, and we'll keep pressing on.
And from your experience, momentum is everything. The more you put yourself at the sharp end, the more good things happen. Just touching back to setup, you've not changed the car too much. You've got a bit more, you've got an option to run more downforce with the way the regulations are this year. How did that feel in the test? And what are your thoughts about that next
Look,
week?
we can definitely follow closer, and which is a good thing. I don't think it'd be interesting whether we can build that second lane through 1 and 2, which we couldn't build. Yeah, because all that PJ1 that the NASCAR guys run, it's really not good for us. So hopefully they can do some work on that. We can build a second groove, and I think you'll see a lot better racing that we've seen over the years at Texas. But it's it's the way that the cars drive, like it's kind of numb. There's so much grip now that it's quite easy to just hold it flat the whole way around, it takes a bit for your mind to tell your right foot to hold it down. And there's definitely a few driver lifts that you think you're flat, but you're not. But
120 miles an hour.
Yeah, no, that's the fun of it, right? And it's all about, like, especially in qualifying, you almost put your left foot over your right foot just to make sure it holds down. It's a full-on feeling, that's for sure.
Yeah, that's cool. And just lastly on Texas, Honda versus Chevrolet. I mean, obviously Scott Dixon, Chip Ganassi, really strong there as well over the years. I mean, where do you see the threats coming from in terms of a universal team Penske operation, or are you just solely focused on yourself?
No, I think, you can't go past Ganassi. They're always fast at Texas, especially Scotty. Yeah, I think from a perspective like Andretti, Ganassi, you can't discount anyone. Rahaal's normally very good on an oval. There's it's a wild card, but Chevy have made some really good gains, especially on the road courses and street courses. Over the off season in the winter. So I think I'm quietly confident that we can go there and have a good race car and be right there. But you just never know when you get there on the day. It's IndyCar, man. Like, it's just. You could literally be 20th without even, and you're like, what happened? It's just crazy. So I'm excited for what we've got and see what we have.
Viewers here will know I always use the term snakes and ladders. Does it feel like that at times where you just go, great guns, hit a ladder, and then you just hit a snake?
My year was like that last year. You like, I've got it. Oh, things are good. Texas is good, and then we're back up for Indy, and then it's tough. But there's one thing that I love about IndyCar is that there wasn't once that I come on Sunday to the race for Grand Prix racing, Grand Prix Sunday, and I was like, I can win this race. Like, if things go my way with the strategy and stuff, and we've got a fast enough car, that's the best part. Things got to work in strategy, and you saw at St. Pete with 3 stops and 2 stops, things change all the time. But that's the beauty of IndyCar, and you just got to be on your toes with everything. But yeah, it's an exciting time for the category, and we'll just keep pressing on.
And talking about strategy, Ben Bretzman's come across from Simon's car. How are you finding that relationship? I know a lot was said in the pre-season about how hard you'd work together I think you used the word toolkit, to get a toolkit together to deal with the challenges ahead, and also focus on how you can be more consistent, but breaking down qualifying.
Yeah, look, we looked at every qualifying, every event throughout the year. We had a 4 or 5 hour meeting just together, and we looked at the trend. What was the main trend that happened to me in qualifying? Because there was a lot of times I was quite quick in practice. I was in that top 8, and then the car would sort of completely change once there's more rubber on the track, and maybe we overstepped the balance. So the overall trend for us was, it went oversteer, went a loss of traction. And we worked on that at St. Pete to make sure our number one goal was to have, traction, and we just made myself comfortable in entries and didn't change the car too much compared to sort of what we did last year. Ben's been great for me. He's simplified a lot of things. And then also working with Kyle Moyer, my strategist, he's done a lot of things with Dario Franchitti, people like Ryan Hunter-Reay, they've won in 500s and championships and stuff. And then obviously the Indy 500 with Simon. So, we've got a really good team. And with me and Benny, like he's not only like a guy that I work with, like we've actually like been quite good friends the last year and a half, played a bit of golf together, and we really understand each other on a personal level. So I think we can be a really good partnership, a really big force, maybe, the next sort of, big force in IndyCar, hopefully. And we'll have a lot of fun doing it along the way. And that's the main part of it. And that's the main goal for us.
Last question. What's your golf handicap?
I'm down to about 10.5, 11. So, yeah.
I watched a video of Lando Norris the other day, and he told the ball didn't go anywhere. I think the tee went further than the ball.
But he looks pretty good for a guy that's only like just started in the last year. I've been playing a lot. 16.
He's playing a lot.
Yeah. Well, what else do you do in a Formula One year, right? Apart from testing and racing.
Yeah, the mega. Well, listen, it's been so interesting to sit down and hear your thoughts on all things St. Pete in Texas, mate, and golf. We really do wish you all the best, Scott. Thank you. So if you want to find out how IndyCar Series leader Scott McLaughlin gets on at Texas Motor Speedway, then tune into Sky Sports next Sunday, the 20th of March from 5:30 UK time. Join me and we'll see you then.